Okay, self-assignment number 3. And this is a really funny way to ask myself this question, but I had a friend say, okay, you want to work on a project? What would Terry Gross interview you about? Anybody listen to Terry Gross?
Yeah.
Fresh Air on NPR. She's always interviewing these interesting people. And so I would like, let me just pretend that Terry Gross is interviewing me. Okay, let me think, what would be interesting to her? So I kind of worked backwards from that, and I came up with, I'm interested in stories, people, whatever. So I decided to interview people on their faith, because I am really interested in that. I continue to be interested in that. And the more bizarre their stories were, the more interesting to me. I wanted to be able to photograph people in a way that was consistent. I wasn't fabulous with shooting in light like this, so I started realizing I want to control the environment. So I just brought a black backdrop, and I actually taped their interviews also, so I got these really good high-quality audio interviews with people. But this guy was a biker preacher. He's in Thomasville, and he has his flock, it's a biker church. And I just thought that was awesome. So he was really fascinating, and he has this whole thing he talks about, I sold women, I sold guns, and he basically had an epiphany. And so as I continued this project, I basically realized that all of the stories were like resurrection stories. They were all people that had been through something and come out the other side, which to me is just interesting in general. So, but as far as design and photography, I worked so hard to pitch this. I sent it to every publisher you can imagine. I worked all my old contacts from Pace. I had a proposal, I had the thing, and it never went anywhere, which, was an ego blow, but, whatever. It was fine. It was a great experience to do anyway, but I was like, isn't this interesting? Are you guys interested in this? This guy was, I just put him on my blog recently. He's an anarchist, and interestingly, his quotes about spirituality were like incredibly, I think, deep and beautiful and spiritual, even though he's says he's not a spiritual person or he's not a believer. This is a really interesting guy who works at UNCG. He's the pastor or whatever for UNCG. And this woman had been a stripper and was raised Baptist and became Muslim. Amazing story. This guy is just this really cool guy, whose name I can't remember, but he's written a couple of books, and he just has a very interesting story.
Is that Eustace Conway?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I was like, I'm going to think of his name, and I'm going to sit here for 5 minutes trying to remember it. Yeah, I'm impressed that you recognize him. Do you guys know the book called Eat, Love? No.
Eat, Pray,
Love. Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote that, her first book was called The Last American Man. And it's a biography of this guy who actually lives in North Carolina, and he has a compound called Turtle Island. Amazing guy. And she wrote this incredible biography of him. And I just thought he was so cool. And he was at some event that I went to, and I was like, I really want to interview him. So I got his image, but I wasn't able to interview him. But I still thought it was fun to get this picture. But thank you because I would have sat there for a long time to remember it. This is another woman who was raised Catholic and converted to Hare Krishna. This is a Buddhist woman who actually was born Buddhist, but I just thought she was so incredible looking. So, I share these only because this was a kind of serious project that I really wanted to do, but nobody paid me for, and I spent years working on it, but who cares? I loved working on it, and any project that you do that you have your heart in, I think will always be fun. But that did bring me to this concept of rites and rituals and beliefs, and somehow I figured out that I could get paid to tell these stories, even though I really, really resisted it, because you can see from my background, it was like, I don't know, in fine art school, you really just didn't say, I'm going to go be a wedding photographer. That's what I really aspire to do. It was not really a prestigious thing to do. It still isn't, although I think it's gotten better. I love it because it allows me to have relationships with people and tell their stories, and they trust me with their stories, and that's a great gift. So I started shooting weddings. Again, somebody just said, hey, I'm getting married next weekend or whatever. Can you shoot it for me? I heard you're a photographer. I sort of did it as a favor and then found that I loved it. So a lot of people will willingly go towards it, but I didn't really do that. I sort of went kicking and screaming. But it's changed a lot in the last 15 years from the posed pictures. You guys probably have rarely seen what it used to look like, but it was tacky. It was like Olin Mills times 10 minus studio was awful. Just really cheap ball, sort of hand ring shots and just cheesy stuff. And when the editorial market changed a lot after 9/11, when people weren't getting paid to work for magazines anymore, were getting fired from their jobs from the newspapers, it became a big place for documentary photographers to start making money because they could go in and tell a story. And sure enough, so these wonderful newspaper photographers started shooting weddings and changing the way people thought about it. And so you were no longer an interfering party. You didn't tell people what to do. You didn't put funny hats on them and make them dance on the dance floor and do stupid stuff. You would basically just be an observer and say, I'm not going to interfere with what's happening. Your story's happening, and I'm going to tell it. And but I look at it as a great way to, still play with composition, and the stories have a beginning, middle, and end, and it's just a fun narrative. So these were just some quick images of my early years shooting. Still shooting film. But I just love that, it's just, I don't feel like in our daily lives we have access to the kinds of emotion that you get on a day like that. And again, if you do, you kind of need to be Sally Mann and photograph your own children day after day, or work on a project that's going to involve you living with somebody that it's going to take months to get this kind of access. But on a wedding day, everything's just wide open, and you have a front row seat, and that's truly an honor and really fun. But as a business person and as a freelancer, the thing that I think will hopefully speak to you is this concept of the pitfalls of going from a technician to being a business owner, which there's a really good book, by the way, called the E-Myth, E-Myth. And the E stands for entrepreneur. Sounds like it's like email, but it really means entrepreneur. And it's his thesis is basically most small business owners started out good at something, design, painting, pottery, music, graphic design, whatever it is, and yet you've never taken a business class, you guys probably were not great in math, you were probably going the other direction from other math people and business people. And so all of a sudden you were like, oh my gosh, taxes? Ooh, what am I supposed to do with that? And permits and just, all the stuff that's not sexy to people who have creative ideas. So I certainly am guilty of that, and I am classically a technician that started in, I had no business running a business. I still say that, and it's, it's hard. It's the hardest part. And the biggest part of that, and this is true again for designers, is that what I do is I'm in the service industry. So I work for you guys as if I were a waiter or a massage therapist or dog walker or whatever. And that has certain pitfalls also, because I work for a million different people. So that's just something to keep in mind, because it's not something that you hear about as much. If you're going to work for yourself, you're working for yourself, but you have, I had somebody say, oh yeah, it's great having your own business because you can work any 80 hours of the week that you want to. And you can also have 70 bosses instead of one. So I share this briefly. It's not anything of interest except for it was showing this whole service thing. I basically have a grumpy mom who was like, you didn't take enough pictures of my sister's brother-in-law's uncle's boyfriend, and why not? And you can imagine, just like, even though I shoot a lot of weddings, I still, I'm completely involved when I'm there, and I'm really passionate about it, and I'm doing absolutely the best job I can, whether I like the people or not, because that's my job, and I want to be good. We all want to have somebody go, ooh, good job. Even if you didn't like the people, you still want them to think you were awesome. So this was discouraging and frustrating, because it was like, tell them they missed the boat. I mean, we hate getting emails like this. Everybody does. Especially when you can't fix it. The wedding's over. Luckily it wasn't like you missed the kiss and you lost the pictures of that's never happened, thank God, but it's still hard to say you didn't get pictures of these people. However, I will share, and I did share this with this woman, I have this in my contract that basically says, I'm a documentary photographer, I'm happy to take posed pictures, but I need you to tell me who you need pictures of. I'd like it in writing if possible, and if I don't get to those, you're going to be okay with that. And a lot of that's about managing expectations and telling people up front, like, look, I'm not here to take snapshots of your family sitting at the table. I'm here to tell the story of the day, and I will do the best I can. In fact, we actually call them grip and grin shots, where we go around the room and just make sure we get snapshots of everybody, but it's not what people hire me for. But it still needs to get done. But if that's all they want, I need to let them know up front, like, that's not, you can find somebody for less money than me to do that. On the flip side of that, this is what, if I feel grouchy about whatever I'm doing, I just get a bump like that, and you're like, I love what I do. It's so fabulous. Again, we're creatures that like praise, and also let somebody do something and remember something. So you carried yourselves more like honored guests than wedding photographers. Music to my ears. That's all I want somebody to feel like. I never want to feel like we were just annoying. Who they truly are, you captured who they truly are, not just how they looked. And a lump in my throat as I viewed this small sampling, but when I got to the pictures of little Hannah the flower girl, you really got me. What you can't know is those soft, innocent expressions of pure joy were precise reflections of my own daughter 20 years ago. Thank you for giving us the thrill of reliving one of the best days of my life. Dang. That's why we do what we do. So, this is a book I was saying to the earlier class, like, somebody needs to write to him and say, you need a graphic designer to redo the cover of your book because you look really smarmy, but it's a great book for people in industries like what you're going to be doing, which is all about needing to book clients and have relationships with people and get more clients than you can handle. I can't say I'm quite there yet. I'd love to be like, I'm so booked, I can't handle it all, but I don't know very many people who are like that. It's, it's just a tough economy now. But the clients that I do have are very passionate about having me be there, and I'm very honored for that reason. But this book is a good one to take a look at. One of the earlier questions was, how do I find clients? And we're going to talk a little bit about the advertising side of things, but in general, editorial coverage, you may have talked about this in a class, is just 10 times more valuable than any paid advertising. Always, always. If you think about how you read magazines, you know the ad is there, but if you're reading a story and the little sidebar says the editors pick Kiehl's Pharmacy for their awesome blah, 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 you're going to go get the Kiehl's Pharmacy stuff because they told you it was really good. So the voice of the editors has more weight. That is now translating to blogs. So you've got wedding blogs where there's a person whose main job it is to tell you how awesome all these other people are, and you'll listen to them rather than to pay attention to the ads. So I started submitting to magazines and getting published there. Full frame digital camera is when you no longer had those little squishy sensors to make your images too small. I was allowed to shoot at the actual width of my lenses. So here's where you guys start to come in, because this is how I see the world of photography changing in relationship to design. Photographers are now innovating for and selling to their peers, creating Photoshop templates, Photoshop actions, marketing templates, and selling tools to eliminate the need for a graphic designer. The photographers who have graphic design experience and training tend to be the best talents and the best at marketing. A few years ago, everything we did, whether it was create a mailer or do a logo or do a website, we were looking for you guys. And nowadays, because photographers are like quasi-designers and they sort of are messing with, basically they have Photoshop. They're not good with Adobe Illustrator or anything like that, but they do have some tools to mess with, and so they've figured out ways to help make those tools useful to other photographers so that photographers don't need to go to designers. This is a website called GetTotallyRad.com. And I admit, I wouldn't look at it for a really long time because I was like, ugh, with the totally rad, give me a break. Like, it just seemed, it seemed a little bit too cute and grungy and like, woo, we're so fun and we're so radical. But man, they make an unbelievable product. They sell Photoshop actions. Does anybody know what I mean by actions? Okay. Yes. So you can get an action mix that'll do something for you in a split second. You can say, I want this to have a sepia tone, black and white, extra contrast. Boom, you hit the button. Oh, it creates layer masks for you. It's instant. Your workflow is just cut in half. So this is a screen capture of my action palette, and you can see it's huge. So I suddenly have this truly palette to work with that I didn't have before, and it's because photographers are innovating on behalf of their peers. So they have these ridiculous names: Grandma's Tap Shoes, Pool Party, Go with the Grain, Dirty and Used Up. That's a texture that you can put on. Dirty Diana, Dirty Birdie, Dirty Lovin', Pink Shift, Rainforest. There's this guy named Jesh DeRox. True name, Jesh, J-E-S-H DeRox. And I can't tell if he's like messing with all of us, because if you go to his website, it opens up and has 3 little options, and it'll say, today I am, you can choose a bird, a spirit, you're like, whatever. So you choose one, because you're like, it's the only way you can get into the site. So you have to choose one, and then it says like, hello bird, welcome. And then everything is all like love and just rocks, but he sells these actions that are amazing, and his are called, think of the name, but his are all down here. So those names are Memory of a Friend, Sound of Laughter, After Twilight. I mean, really, and I'm always like, is he like smoking a lot? And he Twitters, and he's like, spirit, he's a really good photographer, but he's definitely, I keep thinking he's kind of not for real, but he's got great actions. I bought his action set. So this would be straight out of camera. Now, the few things that I did, I took a painting. There was this was at Farrington. Does anybody know where Farrington is? It's over in Pittsburgh. It's this fancy farm where a lot of high-end weddings are. I just took this picture off the wall and hung that because I thought that it would be pretty, but it was a little flat. So then I ran actions on it and popped the contrast, vignetted. Again, it took me like 2 seconds. But once I knew what I wanted, what the actions allowed me to do was suddenly process in the computer the way I would if I were in a dark room. So this is the same kind of thing. Ring shot, I have a macro lens, the kind of shoot bees on flowers and stuff. I shoot rings with that. But that's how it came out of the camera, and that's how it was in action. So I really like actions a lot. So this is just a little quick gallery of some recent stuff. The other thing I'm really seeing a lot is this move. Most of the images I prefer to shoot are are not camera aware. I don't really want a lot of people looking directly in the camera, except for kids. But I do like the sense of voyeurism, although occasionally I really do like the direct gaze. But what I'm seeing more and more is we went from horrible posed to documentary, and now everything's connected to retail and advertising. So the requests I get a lot are, can you make it look like an anthropology catalog? Honestly, I'm not kidding. So that what we're eating as consumers and as viewers is advertising. And so more and more, people always say the best compliment we can get, and it's kind of a silly one, is like, oh my God, it totally looks like it was in a magazine. And that's good, because most of us were magazine photographers, so it should look like that, but what they're really saying is it looks like an ad. So, and it does, and that's okay, and she's just so beautiful. This isn't, I can't take credit for that, because when you photograph somebody like that, you can't go wrong. But I've even seen people blog posting about similarities between like engagement sessions and how they're starting to look like anthropology catalogs or J. Crew, or there's just this melding of advertising and editorial, just some detail stuff. Again, sort of direct gaze. Poor guys. I'm always like, yeah, don't worry about you. Can you look at? So, my clients, the female, and it's usually like, her fantasy of being this, beautiful princess. I mean, that's what it is. Just some fun detail stuff. I often feel like a forensic photographer, like shooting like post-crime scene, because I'm like, like people are in the room and I'm not paying attention because I'm like obsessed with these little detail things. But this is just this little. This is a. I can't shoot this anymore because this is a pose that's now gotten so overdone that we just can't shoot it anymore. I really like it, but again, not really a spontaneous moment. The photographer obviously set that up, me, but people accept that now. And this is not at a wedding, this is an engagement session, and so there's a bigger tolerance for interference from the photographer and posing and stuff. But this was also, I interfered, but I'm trying to create the sense of not having interfered. I basically just came over to them and I said, can you just stand stock still for about a minute and kiss? You know, not a hard request. They just got married. They had a couple drinks and they're fine with that. But then I put them on a slow shutter speed and allowed to create this kind of fun moment. But at that point, you know, they have to really trust me, because otherwise they'd be like, what? You know, we're at our wedding, go away. You know, you want to be able to have that access and that trust. I just like that. This feels like it was shot in the 50s. Photographers' websites are almost 100% DIY now. Most are back-end, self-managed templates by companies that specialize in photo websites. And I'm telling you, this is only like the first few I could think of off the top of my head. There are really hundreds of them. And there are these conferences. There was one recently in Las Vegas, WPPI, Wedding Photographer Portraits International, whatever. And they have these trade floors that are just huge. And all the vendors are websites and action selling, and, you know, just, you know, there's almost a bigger industry selling to other photographers than photographers selling to people who want to have their pictures taken. So Blue Domain is a big one. I probably have 6 or 7 Blue Domain websites because they're so cheap. And I'll say, you know, I think I want to do like a little sidey portrait site, and then I'll start playing with it, and I'll design it, and then I'll change my mind. And, you know, so I have them sort of parked all over the place because they're so inexpensive. But as I was saying, this is the kind of thing we'd have to do, we'd have to come to you guys for. You can go, and there's a company, my blog is designed by a company, it's a custom design blog that was super expensive. And that's one of the few times where people are doing custom things. So the downside of the templates is you go, Blue Domain template, yep, I can see that. You know, you can recognize them now, and then everybody has the same one. You can change the color and the font, you can customize it, but you can still tell that it was a Blue Domain template. So people are doing more custom stuff, which does bode well for you guys. Another photographer designed this website called designaglow.com, which I also recommend you take a look at. She sells, what would you like to do? It says, increase my sales, spice up my images, get inspired, create beautiful products, or create gorgeous albums. So you can go to any of those, and they're all templates that she's created so that you can do it on your own without coming to a designer. This is a sample of the how-to PDF that comes with your templates that you just bought, so that we are bypassing you guys. So the marketing shift, first 3 years that I was in business, print advertising was where it was at. Tried to get editorial, but you pay for advertising, you pay for print. Now nobody is paying for print. Very few people are. And if they are, it's because they've gotten some kind of deal on the blog or the website of the publication, because now everybody who's looking for us is at their job that they hate, sitting on the computer and looking at blogs. And blogs lead into another link and blah, blah, blah. So because they can do that at work without getting caught. But if they're sitting there kicking back with Brides Magazine, like, woo, look at this, you know, they'll get caught. But if they can look at images online and be at work, then that's easy. So brides are looking at stuff online. That's where all the stuff is. The new style of marketing is personality focused, and the one I recommend you look at is this woman, Jasmine Star. Apparently it's her real name. She and Jesh should get together. Jesh and Jasmine. But Jasmine Star, I think it's jasmine-star.com, is a marketing genius. She started taking pictures 3 years ago. She commands $15,000 to $20,000 a wedding. She teaches workshops all over the world. She has 3,000 Twitter followers. She has tons of people who view her blog. It's just an unbelievable thing. But if you go to her blog, it takes you quite a while to actually see any photographs that she took, because it's all about Jasmine. And again, it's this whole new marketing trend that people are doing. And I've actually heard her quoted as saying, people aren't hiring a photographer, what'd she say? They're hiring the person, not the photographer, I think is what she said. Which completely takes out the equation of talent or technique or any of that stuff, because, you know, again, we're sort of interested in reality TV and rock star and all this kind of stuff. But if you go, it's a video of her going like, hi, I'm Jasmine, ooh, and she's really cute, and she's like hugging brides, and, you know, people love it. It's fascinating. So she's made herself into a celebrity, and that's then self-fulfilled. So it's pretty interesting.